Hey YouTube, welcome to another Before YouTube Builds video. This time I'll be reviewing my 1-72 builds of the history of the US Navy Blue Angels and the history of the US Air Force Thunderbirds. And I'm going to do this review in two parts. So this video will be the why, the what, and the how. And then part two will be basically the reveal of each airplane on the turntable, along with the history of each demonstration squad. When I first came back to modeling as an adult in the early 90s, I was still using those kid techniques like, the big red tube of tester's glue, and, I didn't have a clue about silvering decals. So those were the techniques that I used to build these 1-72 planes you see here. So then in the late 90s, after I learned about and subscribed to Fine Scale Modeler, which led me to their books and the proper way to build a model, I was also building this house at that time. So informed by those Fine Scale Modeler books, I purpose built this room. So this is kind of all my how-to stuff and references and stuff. So you can see this was the very first one I got, painting and finishing scale models. So this, it talks about everything you would need: compressors, airbrushes, and then, just the proper way to do things. So I started, learning that. And then I also got this book by Paul Boyer, and he was Fine Scale Modeler's main 1-72 builder and author. And so when I saw this cover, I immediately flashed back to my childhood. I think I was about 7 or 8. And I showed you before, my stepmom kind of kept everything. And this is the actual program. And I've looked through this, and it doesn't have a date on it. But I could probably figure it out by the pilots and stuff. And maybe they probably used it for multiple years, but there's no date on it. But anyway, my parents, took me to this air show, and of course, it was the F4 Phantoms, and it was kind of cloudy that day, so they did what I would later learn is called a low show. And so they would do these low, high-speed passes and then light up the afterburner, literally shooting flames out of the back. As they pulled up, and I just remember clutching my dad's legs simultaneously, like terrified and thrilled and amazed. And then in subsequent years, we would go to the air shows along the lakefront on Lakeshore Drive, the Chicago Air and Water Show. And sometimes we'd go out on our neighbor's boat, actually out on the lake, and watch them from the lake. And then for most of my 20s and early 30s, I lived along the lake and, pretty much went every year. And I've been going to air shows ever since. I think I've got some programs in here. So this is Thunderbirds, and I got some other program. Yeah, 2008, we went to Rockford, took the kids, saw the Thunderbirds there. They got one autograph. We saw the ground show, which was fun. Here's another program. I think I threw this in here from the 1997 air show. Yeah, I would go to this every year I could, right along the lakeshore. And I actually lived in a building like right over here at one time, and then further north, and then the 94 air show. But yeah, so been going to air shows ever since. So yeah, my passion for the blues and the T-Birds, runs pretty deep. So anyway, I read through this article, and, Paul Boyer calls them storylines, but I've kind of come to calling them theme builds. And as you may know, I like to do these projects like the history of the presidential aircraft, or, an entire air wing from 1968. And while I'm on the topic of theme builds, there's another theme I have that has a direct offshoot from the Blue Angels build. And I'm going to circle back to that before the end of this video with a special modeling announcement. So with my theme picked out, I had to do my research. First, just, what was the history, and thus what planes do I need to build, and thus what kits do I need to get, and thus what decals do I need to get. And so I started with the history. Got this excellent book, Blue Angels, 50 Years of Precision Flight. And yeah, so for the next 2 years, basically, I was pretty much all things blues and T-Birds. So I discovered that Minicraft made these history of the Thunderbirds and history of the Blue Angels kits with 5 planes each. And then, you know, okay, so now I've got, you know, these 5. Now I have to supplement those. So I had to supplement with various kits, like this Republic, you know, Thunderbirds, F-84, the Thunder Streak. I'll come back to the decals in a second, but you know, same thing here. So I had these 5 plane kit and the Bearcat, which was a monogram kit. These specific planes, similar to the Thunder Jet over there, you know, this Blue Angels Hornet and this Blue Angels Thunderbird, you know, accumulated basically all the kits that I needed. But the real challenge was with the decals. And I've been out there recently and there's way more aftermarket kits now than there was, you know, 20 plus years ago. But even back then, the modeling community, or at least the vendors, were, you know, pretty awesome. So I was also starting to collect the kits for the Enterprise project, and I had reached out to this one vendor, and he, you know, to buy the E2A. He says, here's the kit of the E2A. Hope you find the Blue Angel stuff interesting. If not, see if someone you know might like it and pass it on. Thanks again. So, you know, I had been conversing with this gentleman about buying various kits, and I told him the various projects I was working on. He just sent me all this stuff. So, you know, history of the Blue Angels, what airplanes they fly, highlighted all this for me, what airplanes they fly, and then same thing for, you know, the Thunderbird history, highlighting all the airplanes that they fly. And then he sends me all these printouts of all the different decal kits that are out there, as well as for, so this was for the Sea Spray, as well as for the Enterprise project. But you'll see these Blue Angel and Thunderbird ones. He highlights them, you know, the F-100. And so this, you know, set me on the journey of, you know, trying to accumulate all the various decals that I need. So I had gone out and tried to cobble together all the different decals. And so here you see, you know, a bunch of different ones, spares, extras, and then these are all the instruction sheets for them, for the various decals. And again, you know, modelers today are so lucky. There's way more out there available than there used to be. So yeah, so then like for this Thunder Streak, so here's the instructions for that. And then here's the decal set that, you know, the instructions for the decal set that I used for that one. So to basically summarize what I ended up building for the demonstration planes on the Blues, basically went with the Minicraft 5-plane kit, which is kit 1209. So it's 1208 and 1209 monogram kits. So I did the Panther, the Cougar, and the Tiger, and the Skyhawk with that Minicraft 5-plane kit. And then for the first 2, the prop planes, I went with an Academy Hellcat and this monogram Bearcat. And then I supplemented, instead of using the Phantom from the Minicraft kit, I went with the specialized kit of the Hasegawa Phantom Blue Angels, and then the Hasegawa Blue Angels FA-18 Hornet. So then for the Thunderbirds, AMT also put out this 3-plane kit, which has the F-100, the Falcon, and the Phantom. So I actually used the Phantom from this kit. So you see from this 5-plane kit, there's a Phantom still in there, and there's the F-100 still in there because I went with that AMT kit. And then, so from that 5-plane kit, went with the Talon, the Thunder Chief, and the Shooting Star, because again, I used this one instead of this one. So you'll see that's extra in there, and I have a Phantom in there left over. And then the very first plane, again, was a dedicated kit to the Thunderbirds, to this F-84G Thunderbirds. So that is pretty much the demonstration planes that I went with. So, you know, once I had all the demonstration planes, I was, you know, also attracted to the support planes. So, of course, I got the Blue Angels Fat Albert. And then I also bought along the way the C54. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I also got these kits for the transports for the Blue Angels. So this is kind of, you know, the rest of my Blue Angel stash, if you will. So here's yet more decals. And then these are Mini Craft, and I just love their decals. You can see they had this R5D3 that supported the Tigers, you know, for a certain period of time. Also used the Constellation. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I came across this, and I've intended to build it and add it to the ranks ever since. And this brings me to that offshoot theme I referred to earlier. The Grumman Corporation would name their aircraft with cat names, and the first 5 aircraft that the Blue Angels flew were what's known as cat planes: the Hellcat, the Bearcat, the Panther, the Cougar, and the Tiger. So through building the Blue Angels, I became a cat plane fan. And thus, you know, this hat that I wear quite often, Flying War Cats, and it's got a Wildcat, a Bearcat, and a Hellcat on it. Well, over the last couple of years, I've come to learn that one of our fellow modelers is also a cat plane fan, and indeed he's working his way through the entire history of the planes. And lo and behold, he's now on the Tiger. And of course, I'm talking about Joe at Mad Genius Productions. And if you have not been to his channel, click on the link in the descriptions, because Mad Genius Productions is truly a unique work of art. Joe's channel has a style all its own, and his work is amazing. And while our styles, you know, differ, our interests overlap quite a bit. He really appreciates the history of his subjects, and so, like, while I basically read the history over my models, Joe actually portrays that history through like awesome footage and imagery that he opens his videos with. So I'll stop there. Go check it out. Given our shared interest in this particular cat plane, I reached out to Joe, and I am truly honored, delighted, and excited that Joe's Tiger and my Tiger will be my first YouTube buddy build. So I believe he'll be putting out a video on the subject shortly, but we're looking to start in March after the small scale group build. So you can see I'm getting ready for that there. And I'll be building this early version to go along with my, you know, long-nosed version there. And so this is a Hasegawa kit. It's basically the same exact kit, except you'll see this special version. And when Hasegawa does that, it means that they've added some resin or special pieces. So this one, you know, the instructions are exactly the same, but then it comes with a separate set of instructions, this separate packet, which has the resin short nose, the Blue Angels decals, and then a special set of instructions to make it that Blue Angels plane. So I'm super honored and excited and really looking forward to that. So stay tuned for that. So moving on, I'm actually making this video after I made the video of all the planes on the turntable, which will be part 2. And I did that after I cleaned every single one of them. So I'm going to show some footage of that and talk a little bit about that, and then just talk a little bit about the planes, and then wrap this video up. So another thing I just remembered is how I did this. So because as I was cleaning, this fell off and it freaked me out for a second. But basically it's the kit piece for the propeller, split down the middle, and then you find the center, and I just kind of put a pin in there, found the center of this after I cut it out, and then just put that on there, and then put that piece on, drilled a hole in that opposing piece, and then put it on. Pretty simple technique. And then this just rests in there like that. So yeah, pretty simple technique to make it look like it's flying. Again, that I learned from that Paul Boyer book. So as I'm cleaning the Panther here, I'll show you this. So the first two, the Hellcat and Bearcat, came with their own stands. And I did those, kind of the two prop planes first, and then went to the jets with that Minicraft kit, and realized, you know what, I'm probably going to have to build stands. So I'll show you what I did on, before or while I'm cleaning this one. Is basically I wanted to, again, I wanted to build them in flight. So I just bought some sheet styrene and put these together in this kind of triangular shape. And this is a trapezoid, or I'm not sure what that shape is called, but just kind of came up with that and basically started with this and then said, okay, it needs to lean forward. And I thought about the angle here, and then bought some more tube and then put weights on the bottom to hold it in or hold it down. And then filled this with styrene and thick super glue. Once that dried, then drilled into that. Then also put a tube in here, drilled a hole, put a tube in here that I knew that would fit perfectly into. Tried to find the right spot for the weight so it would balance, kind of on its own. But also then made this to go in there to hold it, so that goes that deep. And then you just kind of put it on there, and it worked. Ta-da. So I then proceeded to make, these for everything. I never did paint them. You could see it's just the white styrene with the clear super glue. But, they work. Maybe I'll go back and paint them. Who knows? I have to say, I'm enjoying cleaning these and kind of revisiting them, and you have to clean every surface, so you have to look at it, and I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's probably 15 years of dust. So the way I'm cleaning these, and in a previous video I had a supply haul, I got these in the checkout line. I saw these at Harbor Freight, and a bag of them was like, I want to say like $3. So I dip them in the water, kind of wring them out a little bit and flatten them out so I can, get into the nooks and crannies. As they get dirty on top, you just pull it off, that top layer, and toss it until they get down to about like that, and then I go to a new one, and then just start wiping with it. And you got to go over it several times, because first I blew it with the air hose, and this is what's left after blowing it. And so this first swipe is just to get the bulk of it off there, if you will. And then as it builds up, you just pull that kind of top layer away, trim that excess off, and then keep on going. I used 4 of them to do 9 planes. So having cleaned them and, kind of examining them thoroughly, as well as refreshing my memory about each one, I'll kind of go through what I did to build them. Started with the 2 prop planes because at the time, remember, I'm learning my new skills. I was also working on these 1-72 World War II planes. And so those kind of fit right in. And, these came from that other kit. So I, kind of did those as a group. What I was working on at the time was I discovered bare metal foil. So you'll see, especially on a turntable in part 2, that literally every one of these has bare metal foil on it. And as I was working through that, I have to say I was kind of disappointed. Because at the same time I was already planning out the presidential aircraft and thinking, and there's a lot of chrome on those, and thinking what I was going to do. And anyway, I did this in bare metal foil, and it was a major pain. At the same time, yet another theme build, I was working on the Tuskegee Airmen and discovered Alclad, and decided, yeah, that's the way to go. So when it came to The Thunderbirds, then on these I went all alclad. And here and there I experimented with different shades of alclad and trying to mask it and do the different panels, the different shades. If you could see that, especially on these two. And so, yeah, all the rest of the way then I did alclad. The other thing you may have noticed is, I think I mentioned it earlier, the decals on here. I don't even remember what I did to mess them up. And then I never went back and fixed them. So I may go ahead and do that. I think I have the spare set. So when I do the short nose tiger, I may go back and do that at the same time. We'll see. So again, having to piece together the various and sundry decal sets. So for instance, this is a perfect example. You'll see the tail is the correct tail, but that was from a different set. So those have already yellowed, and some of them even at the time were slightly yellow. And this was before I learned the put them in the southern window UV ray trick, although that doesn't always work. But here you can see the extreme white and then the yellowing. So here and there you'll see that. I think on the F4 you can see the tail, the number 1 on the tail there is yellowing. So again, you modelers today are very lucky. There's just a ton of aftermarket sets that I've seen out there now, but they just weren't around back then. Hope you found that interesting. And like I said, I'm going to put all of these on the turntable in part 2 and then talk about the history of each flight group. So until then, thanks for watching and happy modeling.